All right. Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a look at something that I think is pretty relevant to everyone. It's this idea that what we consume mentally shapes our reality.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And we're going to be looking at this excerpt called The Law of Mindful Consumption.
Okay.
And, you know, it's really got me thinking about how we're all careful about what we eat physically.
Right.
But what about like what we're putting into our mind?
That's a good point, yeah. I mean, we're so careful about like, calories and macros and all that stuff. And then we just kind of let anything into our mind.
Yeah, and this excerpt really kind of hits on that.
Yeah.
There's this one line that really stood out to me that said, junk content equals a junk mindset.
Ooh.
So,
I like that.
what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's very true, actually.
Okay.
You know, if you think about it, like, we really are what we consume, right?
Right.
Like, if you're constantly putting junk food in your body, you're not going to feel very good physically, you know? You're going to be sluggish. You might gain weight. You know, you might have all sorts of problems. And it's the same thing with your mind. If you're constantly consuming junk content, you know, things that are negative, things that are not really stimulating your mind, things that are just kind of like, you know, empty calories for your brain, it's going to have a negative impact on your mental state.
So it's not just about like feeling bad in the moment. It's like this is actually like
it's long term. It affects your perception, your thinking,
how you view the world.
It affects your mood. It affects your decision making, you know. It affects everything.
So what are some examples of like what would be considered like junk content?
Well, I think a big one is, you know, social media. Like if you're spending hours every day just scrolling through social media and you're just seeing all this negativity and all this drama and all this, you know, just like junk, it's going to have a negative impact on you. Yeah.
So it's not just like the negativity of it. It's like, and I've read that it also can like impact our ability to like think critically.
And it can really mess with your attention span, you know, because you're so used to just like scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and you're not really taking the time to like sit down and focus on something.
It's almost like training your brain to not, to like not be able to focus. Wow. So, I mean, that's kind of scary.
It is a little bit scary.
Yeah. But the excerpt also talks about like the flip side of that.
Right.
You know, like feeding your mind wisely.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are some things that we can do to be more mindful of that?
Well, I think the first step is just to be aware
of what you're consuming. You know, like pay attention to how different types of content make you feel.
Okay.
Like if you're watching the news and you're just feeling anxious and stressed out afterwards, maybe you need to take a break from the news.
Okay.
Or maybe you need to find a different news source.
Yeah. Right. One that's not.
Yeah, one that's maybe a little bit more balanced.
Yeah. Okay. So being selective about like where we get our information.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding things.
Okay.
It's also about seeking out things that are going to nourish your mind.
So what are some examples of things that would be considered like good brain food?
Well, I think reading is a great one.
Okay.
You know, reading books, especially nonfiction books, that can teach you something new, or that can challenge your thinking. Listening to podcasts like this one, hopefully, that are informative and engaging.
Yeah.
You know, having conversations with people
who are intelligent and interesting, watching documentaries, you know, things like that.
So it's not just about like avoiding the bad stuff. It's also about...
It's about balance.
Yeah.
You know, it's about making sure that you're getting a variety of nutrients for your mind.
So kind of like a balanced diet.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that analogy. So I guess the big takeaway here is that we really do have a lot of control.
We do.
Over, you know, how we feel, how we think.
Absolutely. And it all starts with what we're putting into our minds.
Wow. This has been such a fascinating conversation.
It has.
I feel like I've learned a lot. I don't know about you.
Me too.
What's something that really stood out to you from this whole discussion?
You know, I think what really stood out to me is just how much power we have over our own mental state.
Right.
You know, we're not just victims of our circumstances. We can actually choose to create a more positive and fulfilling mental environment for ourselves.
Empowering.
It is empowering, yeah.
So I guess my final question for you is,
right?
What's one thing that you're going to do differently going forward based on what we talked about today?
I think I'm going to be more mindful of the news that I consume because I find that it can be very easy to get sucked into that negativity cycle.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be more selective about the sources that I choose.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to try to be more intentional about seeking out content that is actually uplifting and inspiring.
Yeah. Good for you.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I think it's something that we all need to be thinking about, in today's world.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to just get bombarded with information. And it's not all good information. So we got to be careful.
We do.
About what we let into our minds.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me for another deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.